is known as one of the foremost experts on how to care for people who are struggling with dementia. She's very animated. I'll warn you, if you are sensitive to language, every now and then you might hear something, but that's, and part of that is simply because oftentimes with people who have dementia, even though they've never uttered a swear word in their life, that becomes part of their language. But just be aware of that. Also, when I give you the handout later, I have made I'm put on there how you can go on YouTube if you'd like to see additional videos that she has done. She also now has a training program. What is that? 20 sessions?
Yeah.
20 sessions that you can sign up for and go through, and those are also on YouTube. So let me introduce this video, and when we're done, I have a couple of very knowledgeable people here with me this morning. We're going to talk about resources and what it's like to be a caregiver. So, thank you.
Here's your early warning sign. And I'm not going to spend a lot of energy or time on these, but I want to just give you a hint. If I am really, really good at telling you, do you remember that one time when you were a little boy and I'm telling you these old stories over and over and over, and yet when you try to get me to hold on to new information, I can't do it, be nervous. Because I should not have more trouble hanging on to important new information when I can access that old stuff. When you start seeing it pretty regularly, a pattern of it. Not just once or twice, but a pattern. You also want to look for having difficulty doing difficult but familiar things, like paying the taxes rather than putting them in a drawer or something. Seeking out a financial advisor, then telling him to do stuff that I would never have told him to do, and then claiming I didn't tell him to do that. Taking money and moving it around. It's like, what are you doing? Well, I needed to move it around. Trusting people like that was not the kind of people I ever trust. Sending money to a post office box in Oklahoma, if it's not my habit. Taking all my money out of the bank and keeping it at the house. Inviting people into the house that I know to come and fix something. We also want to look at problems not just with memory, because that's not what it's all about. We also want to look at problems where I can't think of the thing that you say, one after the other in a row, and there's a dot here. You know, not a sentence, huh? Yes, words. What do you think I meant? You get such an attitude. Now, this one gave me the answer. Why am I being ugly to her? Because I should have known what it was, and I didn't like not coming up with it. Let me give you another example. Not everybody gets angry. Another example of the same kind of thing. You know, it's the one out.
Is the cable loose, Steve? Oh no. Yeah. Okay. Just the way it actually now.
Stories over and over and over, and yet when you try to get me to hold on to new information, I can't do it. Be nervous, because I should not have more trouble hanging on to important new information when I can access that old stuff. When you start seeing it pretty regularly, a pattern of it, not just once or twice, but a pattern. You also look for having difficulty doing difficult but familiar things, like paying the taxes rather than putting them in a drawer or something. seeking out a financial advisor and then telling him to do stuff that I would never have told him to do, and then claiming I didn't tell him to do that. Taking money and moving it around. It's like, what are you doing? Well, I needed to move it around. Trusting people I know, not kind of people I never trust. Sending money to a post office box in Oklahoma if it's not my habit. Taking all my money out of the bank and keeping it at the house. Inviting people into the house that I know to come and fix something. We also want to look at problems not just with memory, because that's not what it's all about. We also want to look at problems where I can't think of the thing that you say, one after the other in a row, and there's a dot at the end. You know, not a sentence, huh? Yes, words. What'd you think I meant? You get such an attitude. Now, this one gave me the answer. Why am I being ugly to her? Because I felt stupid. Because I should have known what it was, and I didn't like not coming up with it. Let me give you another example. Not everybody gets angry. Let me show you another example of the same kind of thing. You know, it's the one after the other, and you put them in a thing, and there's a dot at the end. What? Why couldn't I think of it? No, it's not okay. It isn't now. I wasn't mad before, but now I'm going to get mad. Why? Because she told me it was okay that I was stupid. Oh, is that what you meant to do? Well, that's what you did. Well, you are sorry. This whole situation is sorry. Well, you are. You're going to go straight to hell, too. Now, this is where it feels like, and I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes as a care partner, it feels like no matter what you do, you're not right. It's because this disease makes it so hard for me, because I think I should know something. When I don't know something and you give it to me like that, it proves to me I don't know something that I know I should. I have ADHD. I should be able to think of the thing that it's called. Now, if this just happens when you're exhausted, when you haven't had any sleep, when you're really, really worried, and it only happens every now and then, see, this is the tricky part. Because everyone in this room is going to say, well, I have common friends. Yeah, I'm going to have to, and you're all, everybody's scared of dementia, by the way. They did this study with older adults, and it used to be, what is the thing you're most scared of? Guess what it used to be? Cancer. Guess what it is now? Dementia. Yeah, people are much more scared about this thing than they ever have been before, because the numbers are going up and people realize how scary this is. So what happens is we start seeing some changes in us. We're trying to discount. So one of the most common things, somebody says something like, I'm a little concerned. I can't seem to find the things that I want to say sometimes. You know, the things that you want to say to people. Now notice how I use vague terms to describe the thing. You know, the facts that go one after the other. Facts. The facts. Factals. Fact. Do you speak English? Well, shit. Now, these are all kinds of behaviors that just sort of, as you're seeing them, you're thinking, what's going on here? And yet on other times, I'm perfectly fine. I could come up with words that aren't real words called word salad. On the other hand, I might just speak vaguely. On the other hand, I might quit talking. It's real easy for us to sort of think, well, no, it'll be not this, not, and you want to think of me. Who am I? What have I done? And if it's not consistent with me, you don't lose your speaking skills with normal aging. You are a little bit more as you've been, but it doesn't change dramatically. Your verbal linguistics stay the same. You're a little slower, but it's still the same. You have the same vocabulary. You actually have more vocabulary than you've ever had before. But it takes you longer to find the words. So if people rush you, you will still hear anybody normal aging. Could you slow down just a minute? I'm going to tell you. That's normal between generations. It's also very normal for husband and wives to get on each other about this. Because I'll start, I was going to tell you that so-and-so came by yesterday. Yes, he stopped and he said he was going to fix it. Can I tell the story or you going to tell? This is where sometimes you got to sort of sort out what's normal interactive behavior between people and what feels different. But after you've been around it for a while, you start to pick up on it. if you're listening and paying attention. Another one is getting confused about place or time. So this is that getting lost driving thing. This is getting on the interstate and getting turned around and not being able to think of which exit I'm looking for. It can also be getting lost in my life for a moment. So in a moment, I'm looking for the house I grew up in, not the current house. And so now I get to a place and it's like, how did I get here? Because I don't remember the process, because I can't hold on to new stuff. And all of a sudden I don't know why I got here, how did I get here? Somebody brought me here and left me here, and I'm out here all alone. Oh my God, who is this? And I might look at somebody I've known very closely for years, and in that moment, who are you? Who are you, by the way? And you're my wife, you're my husband. Because in that moment, I'm thinking I'm 22 in that moment, and I'm looking for the person in the wedding picture. And so what happens is I look at you and you scare me, because it's like, oh my God, what are you doing in my house? Who are you? Especially at night. And my daughter is there, and it's like, who are you? What are you doing? Oh, you know who I am. No, I don't either. Who are you? I'm your daughter. Bullshit. I don't have a little girl. I have a little girl, but not anything as old as you. And you focus in on my distress, but what you're not realizing is how scary this is for me. And this actually becomes really scary, because in that moment I'm lost. And so when my grandfather would say, where's grandma? He in that moment truly believed he was in a place in his time life that it would make sense that she was there. Or my mom would say, well, Grandpa, of course you did that. Oh my God. He would grieve again the loss, and yet he couldn't hold on to that loss. So that's not the right answer. That's called reality orientation. We don't do that anymore. That's an old thing. We gave that up. It's not good for people. Worsening judgment. These are things that people are making bad choices. Problem-solving issues. These are people who you can go all the way. Now, this is why those things are good. Oh, I hear you. So this is what I think you ought to do. Oh, okay. So why are you taking my car keys? We talked about this. Oh, I never agreed with that. You did not. The combination of the memory problems and the reasoning skill problems will wear you out if you actually think it's going to stick. Because you get frustrated, because you said, we talked about this already. You remember the talk. I don't. You've got to give up the idea that I hold on to things all the time, because I can't. And so when I say, well, this is the first I've heard of it, your gut reaction, your automatic response to that, it is not the first time we've talked about this. You got to quit, stop, back up. Now, I actually want you to practice that. That is an important skill. I want you to stop. I want you to breathe in, purse your lips, and blow out. Now this time I want you to focus on belly breathing. Okay, in other words, abdominal breathing. We're going to get to this and tell you why and how important this is. Okay, ready? Breathe in through your nose. Blow out. One more time, breathe in. Blow out. Now, the reason I just had to do that, that's a new skill for you. It's called breathing. Most of you think you know how to do this, but when you're a caregiver, here's what starts to happen. You start to get stressed and caregiving, and before you know it, before very long, you are actually not breathing out. You are sucking air in, and you are holding on to it, and you're only using the top third of your lungs because you've got issues. There are issues. Every time I go over here, there are issues. And I don't have time. When am I going to have time to do anything for me? I am stressed out. Let me tell you something. I can't look. And what you don't realize is you're not breathing. You're sucking air in, but you never let it go. And letting it go is an incredibly important skill, both in how you deal with things, but also in just simple breathing. So they did a study of people who are caring for people who have dementia. And they looked at them, and they compared them with people who were not caring for people who have dementia. And guess what they found out? These people, oh, that's a signal. It means we've almost spent about 45 minutes on this. Okay? Let me check in. Have you learned anything yet about dementia that you didn't know? Some of you, yes, some of you not. How about some new skills? Well, you're learning one right now, and are you having some fun? Okay, well, good. Okay, then we're coming along. We'll see what we can do with the rest of this period of time. All right, so they did this study, and what they did is they compared people with dementia who were caregiving for people with dementia and people who were not. And what they found is people who were caregiving for people with dementia had cortisol levels, negative stress hormones, that's 50% higher than the normal person. Now, cortisol is a negative stress hormone. It's not good to have in your system for long periods of time. It's really a good thing to have if you're being chased by a tiger and you want to get away from them really quickly. But if you're not doing that, you don't really want to have high cortisol levels, because high cortisol level increases fat distribution in your organs and around your middle. It makes it very difficult for you to see the big picture. It actually causes your vision to go like this. It keeps your brain from working as well in decision-making tasks. You cannot make good decisions when your cortisol levels, because it's a panic. It's sort of got to make call. You got to do something. You got to move. You're not able to see the big picture and sort of make good decisions and choices based on information out there, because you can't handle all that. It also raises your blood pressure, your heart rate, your blood sugar. Therefore, people who are caregiving for people with dementia are more at risk for developing dementia themselves. Oh yeah, that's not good. We don't need more people with dementia. There's plenty. So here's what we want to do. They did a study and they said, okay, you guys are super stressed. Guess what caregivers said? Oh good, something else I'm not doing right. Great. Well, what am I supposed to do about that? I don't have time to get done what I need to do. How am I supposed to deal with stress in addition to that? So they said, okay, well, we need to make this simple. Let's have them breathe. So they actually did. They had them stop 5 times a day and take 3 deep cleansing breaths. And they actually gave them a kitchen timer to put on the belt. Because guess what happens to caregivers if you don't give them a timer to remember to take care of themselves? They won't. You people don't take care of yourself. You say, oh yeah, I'll get to that sometime. But you don't. So 5 times a day they would stop and they would do those 3 deep cleansing breaths. And after 6 months they remeasured their cortisol level. It was back to normal level. What does that mean about you as a caregiver? You are carrying an incredible burden around and you don't even realize you're not even breathing well. You are going into situations, I'll tell you how you walk in the house for a person. Hey Dad, how are we doing today? You gonna be ready to take a shower? Okay, let's not fight, Dad. You're filthy. This is gonna go real well, I can tell you, just don't go there. But this is where, but notice what I wasn't doing. I'm not breathing. And unfortunately, guess who picks up his cues for me? Daddy. And so now Daddy's getting more and more tense and more upset. What is it you want to do? And before you know it, you two are going at it again without even realizing how you got there. Okay? We've got to change our behavior so their behavior will change. But it's only going to happen if we're the ones who change first. We've got to be willing to make that shift. So breathing regularly. Really, really important. So when you can think of nothing else to do, step back. You're not wanting to take a shower, I do. It's a much safer response. It's a response, not a reaction. You're actually thinking about what you're going to do. You're taking that moment to get yourself together before you try to help somebody else. You know what they say about that oxygen mask? Well, it's the same thing when it's caregiving. You've got to move out of caregiving to care partner. So you have to think. Okay? Now we can go over the rest of these, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I do want to point out a couple of other things here though. The loss of initiation. That's probably one of the ones that gets missed the most. Loss of initiation, it means I'm not doing things like I used to. I will talk about it, but I don't do it. So let's say I used to be very active in my faith community. I used to run a group of adults and we do study. And now I've said, well, you know, I'm not going to do that anymore. That I have given them a lot of time of my life, and I let somebody else step forward. Let somebody else do this kind of thing. I'm just not going to do it. Or I'm not going to go to church this Sunday. Or I'm not going to go to temple this Sunday. I'll do it another time. I'll do it another time. I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to clean that all up. I'm going to get in that room and get it all dealt with. And not a thing gets done. It could be depression, but it might not be depression, it might be the first sign of dementia. Because one of the things that their brain can't do is figure out how to go from a thought to actually doing it. And so you get stuck. And so you get home, it's like, Mom, you didn't even eat the sandwich I left you. Well, I just wasn't hungry. It wasn't about being hungry, it's about not being able to get started, not being able to figure it out, not being able to know what to do first, what to do next, to sequence through it. This is where you go in and you see the bedroom, you're like, what have you done? Well, I was going to put it all away. It's all out. I know, I was sorting it. And so you're frustrated because every time you turn around, I tear things up in my effort to be helpful. But I don't see it. I mean, I'm trying to do it, but I can't figure it out. I start looking at all the piles, and then I get sort of flustered, and I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'll get to it. Just leave it. Leave it. Don't mess with it. I'm coming back to it. But I can't do it.
Okay, so that's TIPA, and like I said, there's a number of other videos online if you're interested. But at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce you to two people who've been a big part of my life and who have spent a lot of time working in hospice. This is Kent and Nita Matthews. Kent and I go back to college. We were roommates for 3 years. And we reconnected 20-some years ago.
Yeah.
And he has been working, he worked in hospice for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And then went to work with the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging, and he was there for 17 years.
Yeah.
So he's going in a moment here to talk about resources that are available and how to find out about resources. The other person is his wife, Nita Matthews. I haven't known her quite as long. She's an ordained pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. But she has spent the last 15, 20 years in hospice work as a chaplain. Right now she's a volunteer coordinator for one of the local hospices, so she may put a little punch in there to see if anybody wants to volunteer. So I'm going to ask Kent to start and present some information about resources, and then Nita is going to talk about what it's like to be a caregiver. She has a brother that she's caring for now, and it happens to be a long-distance caregiving relationship. Kent, if you don't mind.
If you ever find yourself in person with TIPA Snow, do not sit in the first 5 rows. You saw why. And every time, she's consistent. Every time she picks it, she just latches onto somebody, and they're going, what? Because she slips in and out of the dementia so well. And so just put that one away. And she does have a lot of videos. The other is, you don't know what her website is, but you could just Google her name, TIPA Snow. It will take you to her website. She has a lot of information on her website. She has podcasts, she has videos, there's information about support groups, there's a ton of information. So, with that, go to others. She trains people to be coaches within communities, to work with people, to help them deal with the demented behavior. And Colorado Springs, we have a number of trainers that have been trained by TIPA Snow. One is Cheryl Scheuer, who's been working with a home care company here in town for a long time. And the other is Paula Levy, who does her own consulting business, and she's working at opening up an adult care program, like she had up in Woodland Park, and she's phenomenal. But with that said, what I did at the Area Agency on Aging is I would provide consultations to caregivers at no charge. The purpose of the consultation was to provide the caregivers with information about resources that would help them be the care partner for their loved one, as well as provide them with emotional support. What I didn't know when I took the job was it was basically the same thing I was doing as a hospice social worker, but I was moving away from, I wasn't so close to the death part. And while I was there at the area agency, I soon discovered that resources that caregivers need consistently fall in 5 major categories. First category is medical, especially when it comes to dementia. They don't understand what it is. They don't, and the medical model does not help at all, because the medical model teaches us because it labels everything. So there's over 100 different kinds of dementias, which in the medical system, and for a lot of people says, well, all of those dementias are different. Well, they're different in terms of how they process and affect the brain. They are not different in terms of the behaviors that they create. Okay? So the first area is medical. Second area is legal. What kind of legal things do you need to have in place? Third thing is financial. How are you going to pay for all of this? Because we live in a capitalistic society that's based on consumerism, and so a lot of things, services come with a price tag. And then the other is care. Where am I going to get the care? Who do I go to? Do I need care in the home? Do I need care in a facility? Why would I want to move my family member into a care facility? Those were the questions that we dealt with. And the other is financial, medical, emotional support. And you saw very clearly, I mean, this is caring for a loved one with dementia is probably one of the hardest tasks that anybody can undertake. And the reason is because unless you have been trained and you train yourself to learn how to deal with those behaviors, you're going to, and I don't mean to sound this way when I say it, you're going to be doing it all wrong, because your rational mind doesn't understand the demented mind. And she was giving cues all over the place. You know, when a person's struggling to find something and you're trying to help them, you know, they're coming from places you don't even know emotionally. They're scared, they're fearful, whatever, and that triggers a lot of bad stuff. And then you've created something that you had no intention to create because you're just trying to help. So going back to medical. Her website is Positive Approach to Care. That's Tipa's website. She has a lot of stuff on YouTube. The Alzheimer's Association is another great place to go in terms of dementia resources. Oddly enough, you know, the other one that comes to mind a lot is Parkinson's disease. There is a strong correlation with Parkinson's and a dementia called Lewy body. There's also the new hot dementia right now that was getting more and more attention was what was called FTD. And that's what happened. I mean, we abbreviate everything, so they call it FTD. I think of, because of when I was born, when I was growing up, I think of the florists, okay? But FTD stands for frontal temporal dementia. It affects the frontal temporal lobe, which is the executive processing. So, and every dementia eventually affects the temporal lobe. Sometimes it starts here, other times it starts in other places of the brain and works that way. And so what I would tell caregivers who came in, and we were talking about the medical stuff, I would give them information about where to go for them to begin to learn about dementia behavior. If they were extremely struggling, I would give them Paula's name, because Paula is an excellent resource in this community in terms of doing exactly what Tipa did, sitting down and talking about the process and doing some coaching and giving some training. But the other thing is I would then begin to help them understand the process that the focus is on the behavior, not the disease. Because you can't do anything about the disease. There's nothing as a care partner you can do that's going to shift that process. And so you have to begin to shift and say, you have to move out of the reaction mode and into that listening and partnering mode. So we would talk about that. In the area of legal resources, the two big areas were powers of attorney, a medical power of attorney and a financial power of attorney. And a lot of times spouses would say, well, why would I need a financial power of attorney? Because we have joint accounts. Well, yeah, you have joint accounts, but you never know when something else may come up. And so you need to have that financial power of attorney, especially because there is no guarantee on anything that I'm saying, especially in the area of legal resources. There's no guarantee that once you do that, it's going to work as smoothly as they tell you it's going to work. It should, but it doesn't necessarily do that. The other thing I would caution against on whether it's financial or whether it's legal, think through more than once before you decide. Because a lot of times people who, in the early stages of dementia, and they execute the power of attorney, they want the wording in there that says that you have to have two doctors say that they are no longer able to take care of their own affairs. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is they put that in both of their powers of attorney, and you have to execute the power of attorney, but you only have one doctor, and the doctor has said, well, it's some kind of a dementia. And the doctor's not going to sign off unless you bring them back in. And so you're trying to get your family member back in to see the doc, and they're saying, hell no, I'm not going. I don't need to see the doctor. Why do you want me to see the doctor? And on and on. People would do a much better job of it than I would. But they dig their heels in, and you literally can't get them in. Or you get them into the doctor's office, and it's been a struggle, like pulling a dog on a leash that doesn't want to go. You get them into the doctor's office, and they're sitting there, and then you're in the doctor's office with them, and they look at you, and they say, who is this person? I don't want him here. And legally, the doctor has to say, you need to step out. Even though you know that it's their dementia. But the doctor doesn't know that because the doctor hasn't been living with you. And this is that huge gray area that makes dementia so difficult to deal with, because the person looks normal, but they're not responding to anything in a normal way. And the doctor doesn't know that. So the doctor will say, you have to leave. And when you have to leave, you've just lost all leverage, because you can't be there to counter or to say to the doctor, this is what's really going on. So the doctor may or may not sign off to say this person has dementia. And now, because the document says two doctors have to say it, where are you going to get the second doctor? Because unless they've seen, so if originally, because it's like Parkinson's or something, they've seen a neurologist, that might be the first doctor, and then you still have the issue of trying to get him in to see the GP. But if all of this has started with the GP and you don't have a neurologist, you're going to wait for months and months and months before you get in to see the neurologist. So I would just question if you're helping a family member and they're talking about, well, I want two people, to say I have dementia before this goes into effect, it may be a potential landmine, and it may make the caregiving more difficult to do. Financial resources. Over the years, it was amazing the number of people who came in, and we were talking about the resources, and they were making one bad assumption they were making was Medicare would pay for it. Medicare pays for very, very little when it comes to caregiver stuff. Medicare is not going to pay for room and board at a care facility on a long-term basis. Just not going to happen. Medicare is not going to pay for a home care agency to come out to the house on a month after month after month basis. They will do it on a short-term basis, but not for month after month after month. And you're in a situation where you're going to need it month after month after month, if not year after year after year. The other question I would ask is, does your family member have any kind of long-term care insurance? Well, what's that? So then I explain it to them. I say, no, we didn't take that out. But long-term care insurance, and there's pros and cons, and I'll be the first one. I do not have long-term care insurance. And there's a number of reasons why I didn't take it out. But long-term care insurance is set up so that if you need care in the home or care in the facility, after you meet specific qualifications and prove that to the insurance company, they will kick in and they will pay for the care in the home, or they will pay for the care or for the room and board at a care facility. How much they pay for it, when and where, that's all dependent on A, the company that you chose to do it, how old the policy is, and whether or not you, because it's an older policy, did you stay up with the inflationary thing? Meaning, my mom, when she had her long-term care insurance policy, and we were looking at putting that into effect for her, we found out it was useless. Because in the days when she executed it, there was this option where every year when it could be renewed, it was saying, well, because of inflation, it's gone up, and so do you want to cover that increase, which then would have meant a higher monthly premium? She would always say no, because she was having a difficult time paying the current monthly premium. And so because of that, she kept denying it, which meant it was worthless when it came time for us to use it. Now, because of changes in the law, that's automatic, but there's still other kinds of gray areas for long-term care insurance. But that is another means to pay for the basic resources that would help you as a care partner in terms of having additional care come into the home or having moving into a care facility. And when you're looking for home care agencies, they are not all created equal. Because in the state of Colorado, you have two types of home care agencies. You have a medical home care and you have a non-medical. What's the difference? The basic difference is the medical home care companies are the ones that have the skilled positions, meaning they have the registered nurses, they have the OTs, PTs, STs, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. And they also have their staff that can come in and do the physical care in the home, or CNAs. Non-medical don't have the skilled positions. They have what are called personal care workers or homemaker companions. A personal care worker basically gets the same training as a CNA. The difference between the two is the personal care worker is paid less. The other is that the CNA is under the supervision of a nurse. Now, that's helpful if your family member has wounds that need to be taken care of or other things that require a nurse. She can write up the care plan and have the CNA carry it out. But if you're just needing somebody to come in doing bathing and dressing and maybe some light housekeeping, you don't need a CNA to do that. A personal care worker can do that. Okay? So there's a difference in costs. And so we would talk about that. We talk about what to look for when you're trying to hire a home care company, questions to ask before you hire them. And then when it comes to going into a care facility, what do you want the care facility to do? Are you moving them in because of their memory? And so you can drive all around town, and they're hard to identify. They're easy for me because I know it, but we've got one, it's a rather new one, it's called Melody Living, and it's up on Powers and Woodman on the corner. And it's got independent, it's got assisted, and it's got memory care. Okay? And so just because the person has memory loss to the care facility doesn't mean that your family member is automatically going to go into the memory care, because it has to be to a certain level before they can move in. The other is there are also nursing facilities, and the nursing facilities are becoming less and less and less. I am seeing, over the years, I'm seeing all kinds of brand new assisted livings being built with memory care, but very, very few nursing homes. All of the nursing homes we have here in Colorado Springs are at least 40 to 50 years old, at best. Okay? That's a part of the care continuum that's beginning to die off, which scares me, because then what are people that are in assisted living but don't have memory issues? Where are they going to go when their care becomes too difficult to stay in the assisted living? Because that's the other thing to think about as well, is because assisted living means we will assist you only to a certain point. After that point, if you need more care, basically if you become bedbound, we will take care of you, but you then have to hire extra care to come in to be with you, because we can't have a staff person monitoring you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're not set up to do that. We're not licensed to do that. Okay? So there's all those kinds of nuances. There are also agencies and companies in Colorado Springs that help you find facilities like Care Patrol and assisted living locators and a number of other ones like that. They can help you find that. And I had a checklist that I would go through and say, here, these are the questions to ask, and you can have them guide and direct you to a proper facility. And then the last is on the emotional support. And with the emotional support, a lot of it just started right there. I considered my program at the area agency the MASH unit for care partners, because every care partner that I came in was beat up and bullied and exhausted physically and emotionally, because they kept pushing the envelope. I can do this on my own, I can do this on my own. And I have done presentations in all around town about why we as human beings do that to ourselves. But we would talk about the emotional support. The Area Agency on Aging continues to have a caregiver support group. You all have a caregiver support group here. The person who started it is sitting here.
No, that was on before me.
Okay, but you picked it up. And then Cynthia is currently doing it, and she's sitting in the back. It's a wonderful support group. And there are other caregiver support groups, care partner support groups. And I also, depending on if it was disease related, like a Parkinson's issue or other diseases, encourage the care partner to attend support groups around those specific illnesses as well. The Area Agency on Aging continues to have a respite program to give the caregivers a break. It's a voucher that they give to the caregiver, and it will pay for time at a daycare, or it will pay for time for a home care agency to come out to the house and provide care in the home. The Easter Seals of Colorado also has a program where they will pay for respite in the home as well. So there are different places to go to get the respite. At the Area Agency, they are still doing a program called Powerful Tools for Caregivers, which teaches caregivers how to take care of themselves, which is what Tipa was relating to at the end. And then I'm going to wrap up with this. If you don't have this, get this. Right now, and Steve reminded me when earlier discussion before we started, they are out of the 24-25 copies, but you can go online to the, it says ppacg.org/yellowbook. And you can go online and look at the online version, since there aren't any hard copies. But this has all of the resources to help seniors understand what's out there to care for them, as well as resources for family caregivers. People always ask me this, what's the difference between this and the Blue Book? Because the Blue Book kind of does the same thing. The major difference between this and the Blue Book, this one is easier for seniors to look through and pull out the information because it's basically, there's not a lot of graphics in it. It's simple black and white. In the Blue Book, there's a lot of splash and color. And so the information gets lost in all the graphics and everything. The other major difference between this and the Blue Book is there is a criteria to be in here, but one of the criteria is not that you pay us to be in here. If you run across a hospice or a home care agency or a care facility that's not listed in the Yellow Book, it's because they haven't told us they're here. Okay? We don't go out looking for them. They have to come to us and say, we are here, we'd like to be listed in the Yellow Book. In the Blue Book, they're listed there because they pay to be in there. Okay? So, thank you.
When does that come out? Like
It comes
January?
out, it should be coming out about the spring, like maybe March or April. And you can always call the Area Agency on Aging, which is the 719-472-096 number. You can always ask them, do you have current Yellow Books in? When do you expect the new ones to come in? And when the other is when the new ones come in, the best places to look for, you don't have to go down to the agency office to get it. You can go to any library branch. In fact, you may want to check local library branches to see if they still have copies of the Yellow Book. And then copies also are given en masse to the senior center. And by the way, I am so happy the new senior center has opened. If you haven't been there, go to it. It is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'll let my wife talk.
It's a good thing he went first, because when I start talking, I can't stop. I have been a caregiver for my brother now for just over a year. Is that right? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. He's 85 years old. He has end-stage heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, gout, glaucoma. I don't know what else. There's more. I know there's more. And he was living alone in a studio apartment, and I call it a dump, because it was. I tried to clean it.
How many years had he lived there?
He lived there over 30 years. And you know, his wife divorced him 35 years ago. His kids wrote him off, said they didn't want anything to do with him 30 years ago. So he's been alone. And he was still working for a while, but you know, about 65 he retired. So 20 years ago, he wasn't working, he was living alone. And he has suffered from depression his whole life. He is also an incredibly stubborn person. Unfortunately, that's a family trait. He has control issues, he has authority issues. He was in the Army for 3 years, and he's lucky they didn't kick him out. He's had a difficult time keeping a job his whole life. He's just always had issues and problems. And my mother, when she was still living, was always wanted to live near him so that she could be there if he got in trouble. And my sister kind of took over when my mother died, and my sister died a year ago, June. And so I inherited Charles because there was nobody else in his life. He has me. We have another brother who lives in Florida who really has had nothing to do with him for their whole adult life. So it fell to me to do whatever I could. So a year ago, a little more than, he had a major heart attack. And somehow my number was found in his wallet, and the doctor called me and said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "What?" He said, "Well, he really needs open heart surgery, but he won't survive it. What do you want me to do?" And I said, I don't have power of attorney. I don't have any authority. Ask him what he wants you to do. And he said, "I want you to fix me." So what they did was they put in a couple of stents, and it opened up the arteries, and it helped enough that he was able to, he survived the surgery. I went out and I said, you have got to make me your power of attorney, your medical power of attorney. I can't do anything for you unless I have that. He finally agreed to it. I've been offering for several years. He finally agreed to it. And so now I was in charge of making sure that he was okay. He refused to go to rehab unless I agreed that he could move back to his apartment after rehab. I took a look at his apartment and said, you don't want to go back there. That's my home. I want to go back. So I promised him. And in order for him to go back to that apartment, I had to make sure it was livable. Well, it was full of bugs. The ceiling in the bathroom was black with mold. There were dead cockroaches. There were bugs in the bed. It was awful. So I got the apartment to haul out the bed and throw it in the dumpster. I got the apartment to put in new carpet because that had never been replaced, and it was full of holes and it was filthy. But they wouldn't paint for whatever reason. So I scoured the walls with Clorox and made them at least a lot lighter than they were. And I cleaned and I cleaned. I cleaned every piece of furniture. His furniture was had all been retrieved out of a dumpster. He didn't have anything that was ever bought in a store. It was just awful. But I made it livable. I promised him he could go home, and I kept him in rehab just as long as we possibly could. We finally brought him home to his apartment, and I got hospice on board. They signed him up the day he came home, but they wouldn't sign him up unless they had caregivers. So then I had to find caregivers that would come in, and it was $40 an hour for caregivers. And his money, my money, I was not sure how we were going to do this, but we had 8 hours of caregiving a day, 4 hours in the morning, 4 in the evening, and that seemed to work, kind of. But he got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he pooped and peed all over himself because he couldn't get to the bathroom, and he fell, and he got confused. So 13 days after I moved him in to his apartment, I moved him into a small care home, which I felt like was the answer because he was in such poor condition. And, the story goes on and on and on. It was just one thing after another I had to do. I fought with his banks to get control of his money. Even though I had power of attorney, that wasn't enough. They needed 2 doctors to sign the letter saying that he wasn't able to, well, he didn't have 2 doctors. Well, he did. He had a VA doctor who didn't know him, who said, well, if you bring him in, I couldn't get him to the VA, to the doctor. So finally, I talked to the hospice, and they had 2 medical directors who signed the letter. Thank God, so that I could get control of his money and I could take care of things for him. He had 2 banks. Why does anyone have 2 banks when they don't have any money? I don't know. But he had 2 banks. One never did work with me after went in to see them multiple times, gave them what they asked for, and they still didn't work with me. I finally just closed that account. I just withdrew all the money out of it, put it in the other bank, and after a while they sent me a letter saying, well, we have to close your account. You need to put money in the bank. And I went, oh, no. So but it was just constant. I'm constantly on the phone with caregivers, whether it be his hospice nurse, his hospice CNA, his social worker, his chaplain, the memory. And then of course every day that my brother was doing, he was doing well. He was eating 3 meals a day. He was getting good care, and he was bored, and he was unhappy because he wanted to go home. Well, I told him, I let your apartment go. What? Well, we had the conversation and you agreed to it. I never agreed to that. Sound familiar? I got rid of all of your furniture. Well, I didn't agree to that. You were going to put it in storage. I said, no, I asked you what you wanted to keep, and those are the things I sent with you. I don't remember that. He didn't remember those things. I got rid of his car. Oh man, was he angry about that? He hasn't been able to drive for 6 years because he can't see. He doesn't have a driver's license. He's not well enough, but yet he was so mad that I got rid of his car. It was just one thing after another. And, I kept trying to please him. I wanted, like everything, for him to be as independent as possible. But the bottom line was he had dementia. He was legally blind. He could hardly walk, even with a walker. And he was a heart attack waiting to happen. And he wasn't safe when he was alone in an upstairs apartment with no elevator. He, had gotten used to the last couple of years taking the taxi to get to Walmart and to buy the same things. He'd buy some potatoes and he'd buy some hot dogs and he'd buy ice cream and pudding and enough to carry in his bag, in one bag, so that, you know, every 3 days he had to go to the grocery store. But he couldn't get up the steps anymore. He had to have the taxi driver help him up the steps. And for a fee, he would pay him an extra $50 to walk him up the stairs to get him to his apartment. He couldn't take care of himself. But unfortunately, what he remembers is years ago, well, I have my own apartment. I can do my own cooking. I can drive myself to Walmart. Well, I can take a taxi if I don't have a car anymore. I can do my own laundry. But he couldn't walk down the steps to the laundry room to go wash his clothes. He would wash his clothes by hand in the sink. My time? Well, yeah, okay. Oh, so I'm sorry I'm talking so long. The thing that I've learned through all this is so interesting. When you're a chaplain and you're talking to people who have loved ones with dementia, it's so easy to tell them what to do and to just know, well, this is what you do. This is what you do. I know it's hard, but this is what you do. Well, now, you know what? I know it's hard. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I have a whole new appreciation for what my caregivers go through. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do because I'm trying so hard to please my brother who is never happy, never happy with what I do. I'm trying so hard to make things right, but the bottom line is I want him safe, I want him cared for, I want to make sure he's getting nutritious food, I want him to have quality of life. This man for 20 years hasn't done anything except go to the senior center to play bridge, and then he quit when COVID hit because everything closed down. And when COVID was no longer an issue, he couldn't see well enough to go to play cards anymore. He has no friends, he has no family except me. And now he's in a memory care unit. I moved him to a memory care unit where he has socialization, he has people around him, he has activities, a lot of things he can't do because he can't see, but he still can enjoy being around other people. And I got a picture sent to me today, or last week, from the memory care director saying, your brother has a girlfriend, what do I do? And I'm like, yay! Because he's the happiest he's been in 20 years. He's still, every other day is so depressed he won't talk to you, but you know what? He's having more good days, and I have finally made peace with the fact that I've done everything I can do for him. And I have to accept that that is enough. And I am so thankful for hospice, for the caregivers in the memory care, and for being able to let go.
Where is he physically? You said he's not
He's
here.
in San Jose, California.
Okay.
And I was flying out 2 weekends a month for a while to try to get everything. Now I'm taking care of me.
With talking about a brother, one thing that I need to say about dementia. So her brother doesn't have a diagnosis of dementia. He does now, but initially, no. It was all of these, it's the cardiac, it boom, 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 boom. And all of those, you put all of those together and it interferes with the function of the mind. Okay, so it does produce dementia, but it's not a typical dementia like Alzheimer's or Lewy body or whatnot, but the behaviors and the responses are exactly the same. And that's an important thing. So if you see somebody who has a lot of chronic illnesses and it's like they're acting like they're demented, yeah, they probably are, because they've got all of these multiple medical problems that are interfering with their ability to think.
Well, thank you for being here. We don't have time for questions, I'm sorry.
It's his
But
fault.
I appreciate, unless you want to talk to them. Did everybody get a handout?
Yes.
Oh, you have some.
Oh.
Wendy.
Who signed that? Did you two sign this?
You.
Attended?
Oh, no.
He was so tired.
Also, with basically every bit of information, see if I can just add on things like the pamphlets and announcement that kind of goes So just in the future, just have this printed out, so you're a little forward to try to do something like that. Keep it very organized. I think that's the first time and grasping how things might go in the future.
Right.
Well, one is pretty good, and the other one I have surgery this week.
Yeah. I did print out what we put in there.
Okay. Go to your work.
Forums for.
It's not hard right now. Thank you
Thank you very much. Yeah. It's Spanish
What's hobby? So I'm doing this stuff with commercial.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I should leave it upstairs in the office or I should just.
Right, no, I don't know either.
I'll talk to Rachel, somebody who might have information on that, and if
Or Emily.
yeah.
See what she's usually here on Sunday.
And
Emily isn't.
if not, I'll just hold on to it. If,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's what I'm thinking going forward, though, which is having that binder, like having form sheets.
Explain, like, you know, like who keeps the records of how, like, I'd be curious, who keeps the count, you know?
Yeah.
Is that something Emily does, and they like to have it Monday when they get to work? I don't know. So, you know, I'm right on the same page with you. I like to have it written down. I like to, even if you don't, so
Yeah.
Rob may not have to refer to it, but you and I may. And if
And
somebody's not here, then we can fall back and go, well, here's the routine. Here's the
And-
outline of what needs to be done.
Furthermore, too, if somebody's not here and they have any more information, I'm also thinking too that binder will have like some of the material that they may bring in and just hand it out to them. Like, oh, here's what you missed. Like, hand out one of the pamphlets,
Yeah.
like what they did with the missionary work that they did with the Guatemala. They had a lot of pamphlets and material that they were
Okay.
handing out. So just records keeping, be able to keep track about who's, and have more attendance sheets on hand just in case we can't
Yes,
find the
yes.
clipboard or any other attendance sheets for
Yeah.
that matter.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
and I'll talk to Rob too, see if he thinks about it as well.
Yeah, and what he may want to add, think needs to add. What I don't know, I might have an opinion, and so might Rob, is how much of the technical information with the equipment should be in there, or if that's